Hi, my name is Dr. Patricia Murugami. Welcome to Your Next Best Self. I know you might be wondering, who's this Dr. Patricia Murugami? Well, I'm a leadership catalyst, a leadership coach, an educator on matters to do with life, leadership, love, and legacy. And I hope that as you start to listen in and practice some of the leadership insights we'll be sharing here, you'll begin to see your next best self.
Welcome back to Your Next Best Self. So this year has been something, and I was given a gentle hug the other day when I received an award. And as I was preparing to receive that award, it got me thinking about imposter syndrome and how imposter syndrome has been part and parcel of very many women and men's lives, and it blocks you from truly rising and becoming your next best self. So today I want to talk about imposter syndrome and the fact that imposter syndrome is the unexpected friend, not an enemy. You see, even as I was standing there, I was reflecting on my journey. And many times, and for many women and many leaders, even in our highest moments, we quietly wonder if we truly deserve to be here. For many years, I battled imposter syndrome. I thought it was a sign of inadequacy. But along the way, and with the whole piece of work we're doing across the world of reshaping leaders, I realized that through leading, stumbling, rising again, and guiding thousands of leaders, that actually imposter syndrome is not your enemy. It is your unexpected friend. Did you hear how I am excited about meeting this friend? You see, imposter syndrome whispers that you're not worthy, you're unworthy. But when it whispers, I want you to flip it. It whispers not that you're unworthy, but that you're growing. If you're not doing anything to grow, you will never experience imposter syndrome. Maybe some of you are like, what's that? Yes, that's a sign that you need to be doing more, you need to be growing further, and you need to get out of your comfort zone. It shows up at the edge of every new frontier, not to shame you, but to invite you to rise and unlock. It reminds you that you're stepping into spaces your ancestors could not even dream of. You know, I think of my great-grandmother. Could she even fathom that her great-granddaughter, Dr. Patricia Murugami Mudhoni, would be catalyzing leaders globally, would be a mother of 5, would be married for decades joyfully? My life is a testimony of dreams that people before us couldn't even dream of. Imposter syndrome only appears when you're breaking ceilings, not when you're hiding. It visits those who are doing meaningful work, not those who have chosen comfort over calling. And as leaders, you have to stop looking at this feeling as a weakness. In fact, let me guide you on reframing it as evidence of growth and elevation. May you remember that you are living answered prayers, and that you are living prayers that your ancestors, my ancestors, did not even pray for. They had no idea that this could come. And may they rest in peace, because their sacrifices are the reason we are where we are. Imposter syndrome is a signal that you're expanding your capacity, stretching your courage, and aligning with a bigger purpose. You know, I feel imposter syndrome every stage I'm about to step on, every book I'm about to release, even some posts. I'm like, why should I be the one writing this to people? But I remind myself that when you're given a gift, use it to solve a problem and to serve others. Otherwise, it will rot and you will stink with a stench of unutilized gifts. That stench of underutilized gifts or unutilized gifts shows up in cynicism, envy, critical spirit, backbiting, gossiping, jealousy. All those things are a mode of the stench. So as I was reflecting on that award, it's not because I've conquered imposter syndrome, far from it, but I have learned to walk with it, listen to it, and then lead anyway. In fact, at some point I say, imposter syndrome, he even has a name. I say, now I'm going to press mute. You have helped me prepare, but you're not going to paralyze me. Because leadership is not the absence of fear. It's a mastery of inner dialogue. What's your inner dialogue? What is that inner conversation you're having? It is choosing service over self-doubt. It is understanding that my voice, your voice, even when it is trembling, when it is shaking, can still transform lives. To each and every one of you, as you listen to my voice here, don't wait to feel ready. Don't wait to feel perfect. Those are fleeting ideas that will never come to pass. Just begin, because your becoming is waiting for you. You see, when all is said and done, imposter syndrome can either protect you or paralyze you. The choice is yours. You know, as I think about the award I just received this early December 2025, I hope that when you see this award and the award that you gain and the prizes and the significant things you're doing, each of us in the hidden spaces, in the public spaces, that your greatest breakthrough often sits right on the other side of the moments you doubted yourself the most. Right on the other side. So as I wind down on this particular podcast, I want to ask you a couple of questions that you can use to actually navigate imposter syndrome. And I want you to ask yourself, from an awareness perspective, when does imposter syndrome show up most strongly for me? Before, during, or after the moment of growth or elevation? What is the specific sentence this inner critic whispers? At Breakthrough, we call this imposter syndrome the evil DJ, playing the wrong playlist. Some of you know I love dancing, I love music, I sing. I can't wait to join choirs into the future when my children are a little bit more grown up. But one of the things is there's a voice that is whispering something. Is it your voice, or is it coming from someone who told you can't do it? Awareness. Identity. What part of me, what part of you feels unworthy? Is it your skills, your story, or your sense of identity? Ask yourself, what would my younger self think about me if she saw me hesitating today to put up my hand and say, I would like to contribute to that? Some of you have children like I do. What would they say? They say, look at mommy, look at daddy, hesitating to use their gifts because they're fearful. Who was I told I was not allowed or not expected to become? It reminds me of some work we did with the World Bank a couple of years ago, and we were working with women in the water sector. And these women came into the room, and part of the process is to introduce yourself in a very meaningful way. Many of them could not even hold the mic. I was heartbroken, but I was like, this is where we're going to start from. And by the time they graduate, they will not recognize themselves. And I asked them, after their struggle to introduce themselves, asked them, what is going on in your mind? And they told me, Dr. Pat, where we come from, in some parts of Kenya where we are not even considered to be in Kenya, which is such a pity. We are told that stretch out your hand. Where your tallest finger reaches is where your voice should reach. You are not allowed to speak up. You're not allowed to share your ideas to people. We're still in a group or a crowd? No way. So right here, from introduction, you are just changing the way we look at ourselves. And I told them, use your voice to serve others, not just for yourself. Reframe how you're using your voice, and little by little, we shall start to change those cultural norms. Identity. Who was I told I was not allowed or not expected to become? The third aspect that could be impacted on by imposter syndrome, purpose. What if this feeling is not a warning, but an invitation to rise. I think back about the very first opportunity I had to present to a board of directors that were very scary. I was in my early 20s. We'd done this work across the country, strategy and leadership business process work. And my boss was supposed to present to this board. She fell sick. And the MD said, Patricia, you're going to present this thing. After all, you're the one who's done the whole PowerPoint, the whole report. You've gone around the country. And I tell you, I was petrified, terrified, ready to run. But somehow I stayed. And I asked myself, how do I present this to this powerful board of directors who are likely to start by saying, this young girl is like my granddaughter, which by the way they said. And I was like, oh, okay, let's see how we can flip that rather than make it block me. Let it help me serve them. The feeling of imposter syndrome was, I could cut it. It was palpable when I think about that room. Back then, my early 20s, some of those board members were political figures and they could shred you with their tongue, the things they would say. And I was like, goodness, what if my firm loses their account on account of my inability to communicate the outcomes of our research, our process, and the proposed strategy? And then I asked myself, what am I doing here? I'm here to serve. I'm here to solve a problem. And this organization's work was far-reaching across generations. I had seen how their customers were crying. If I was going to be the voice that would change that trajectory for that woman in Meru, for that man in Kisumu, for that grandmother who couldn't even talk because of how pained she was, I said, I'm not letting imposter syndrome get in the way. Certainly, I didn't even know it was called imposter syndrome. I just knew that I needed to step forward. And maybe the question to ask yourself, how is imposter syndrome signaling that I'm stepping into something bigger than my comfort zone? And that's exactly what happened. I stepped into something very scary, but therein lies my purpose. Were it not for my boss then, may he rest in peace, I probably wouldn't be doing the leadership catalytic work we're doing across the world. I wouldn't have the courage to speak, even in this podcast, to speak on stages that I consider sacred spaces, platforms that I will not always have access to. But for now, when I have access to them, let me use my gifts and talents, experience and networks to elevate the human spirit, were it not for that day when I was in my 20s. A third question around purpose. What purpose am I being pushed towards that fear is trying to protect me from? I've just told you the story. So many years ago, almost 30 years ago. Looking back, I'm so grateful that I jumped in. My boss would say, we'll push you, but you will not drown. We have a floater ready to help you. A fourth element, reframing. If imposter syndrome was a friend, what would it be trying to tell me? That's how I look at Bozo, my imposter syndrome. I'm like, Bozo, you're here again. Something good is about to happen. What are you trying to tell me? Bozo is trying to tell me, prepare well. Don't fail. Give it your best. Reframe imposter syndrome. What evidence do I have that I do belong here? Because you do. You belong at that table. You belong in that team. For this season, you belong there. Don't cheat yourself of your destiny and your purpose. What part of my journey have I forgotten to honor? Today as I was preparing for this podcast, I hadn't remembered about that situation when I was 24. I was 24. And I honor that girl. I honor that Patricia at 24 because the things she did then have set the path for me to be who I am now. A fifth element to ask yourself when it comes to imposter syndrome is strength. What strengths have carried me through every rise, setback, and breakthrough moment? What have I overcome that proves I deserve to be in these rooms? You deserve, not for yourself, but for everyone who's paid a price before you and everyone who's going to come after you. So for that reason, take courage and move forward, my sister. My brother, take courage and break that generational curse. What have others trusted me with that shows I am capable? Because if you've been told to do something, someone must be trusting something in you that you don't even see. Honor that strength. 6, courage. Courage. What would I do differently today if I truly believed that I am enough in my unenoughness? What would I truly, truly do? What is one courageous action I can take even with the fear still present? Yesterday, I was doing a session for one of my risers who graduated, who's running a mentorship program all the way in Nyali, in Mombasa, in the coast. And I was so fascinated to see the work she's doing with her team. Thank you so much, Sarah. You know, one of the things I thought about is how courageous you are. And then, of course, I've had the privilege of knowing her sister, Pam, and their family as a result. And I can see that courage is in their DNA. And I honor each and every one of you in that family. Thank you for also trusting us with your leadership growth. And you know, I was thinking about something she told me that, you know, we're reading Unlock in a book club. I'm like, we just launched Unlock about 6 weeks ago. How are you already reading it? And she said, yeah, because you know, you teach us to seize the moment. And I remember being so afraid when I was launching Unlock, writing it, taking it to the publisher, editing, that whole journey. It doesn't matter even if it's the 5th book I've written. I still feel a sense of, is this going to help? Is this enough? But I want to encourage you. You're enough in your unenoughness. What is one courageous action I can take even with the fear still present? Yeah. Ask yourself and then do it. How do I want to show up when doubt whispers? This is part of pre-mortem. Think about it beforehand, plan it so that when doubt shows up, you're able to move forward. Just 10 areas. I'm on the 7th. Community and support. Who are the safe people I can speak to when imposter syndrome tightens its grip? Sometimes it's my family. Sometimes it's my Lord in a prayer there. Maybe it's a friend telling you, keep going. You know, the other day, you just don't know what you're doing for your community. So recently, I lost a very close auntie who's really like a second mom. And so it's been tough because it's been a series of a season of losses and a season of people who are close to me in hospital, others who've passed on just before her. So for about 6 weeks, it's been, you know, that kind of season. And I'm trying to catch up with my friends now because in that kind of season, you almost have no time to do anything else but family work and support your family in that season. And I had a date with one of my friends, Phyllis, who's an amazing trailblazer, CEO of Bush Blazers, where you should really be talking to them about your holiday and your rest. And she taught me something called the pollication, where after you've gone through a loss, take a vacation to say sorry, to kind of lean into the grieving process and the healing process and the surrendering process. And so we're talking about that, and I was saying, you know, I need to do something like that soon. And then she told me, you know, Pat, you have really taught me so many things. You've given me a lot of courage because of being in your community. You know, we've known each other for many years, over 2 decades. Yeah, decades is the way we speak here, eh? And she said, you know, I didn't believe that you could hold the Christmas party on the 22nd of November, coming out of a funeral and a series of, you know, hard seasons. And I thought I was waiting for a postponement. And I told her, we don't postpone things unless there's something very critical. But more importantly, it wasn't so much just holding a Christmas party. It was the fact that I knew everyone, 50 or so of the leaders who came, needed the cheer just like I did, of being in that Christmas party, of recognizing the seasons we've been through, of healing, of recovery, of renewal. So she encouraged me as much as I was encouraging her. So check, who are the safe people you can speak to? Who do you compare yourself to? And how can you release that comparison with grace? Release it with grace and compassion. How does my community reflect back a version of me that I sometimes forget? Here I'm thinking about the Africa Rises Network. We are growing. I'm excited about how that network has grown. Every individual there has grown. Some have grown publicly through promotions, through finishing programs, through being awarded. Others have grown privately, but everybody has grown. That's my community. And it reflects back to me versions of me that I sometimes forget. What about you? Join us, perhaps. Join a community that builds rather than breaks. The eighth aspect that is impacted by imposter syndrome is legacy. Ask yourself, what will future generations lose if I keep shrinking? Ooh. What will future generations lose if I keep shrinking? That has even brought a tear to my eyes. What will they gain if I choose to rise despite the whispers of imposter syndrome? How is this moment part of my legacy of courage and, more importantly, legacy of service? I think these questions, I should make them into a book. 9, spiritual and emotional grounding. What does God say about my identity that my fear and imposter syndrome is trying to get me to forget and have selective amnesia? When in my life have I felt divinely carried into a room I did not expect? Hey, this year feels like 2 years, but earlier in the year, just after my birthday in early June, I had the privilege, humbling honor of sharing some leadership insights, leadership and governance insights to an Africa board of directors, over 100 directors in a room. And I tell you, that was a room I didn't expect. I was divinely carried into that room. And I thank God and I pray that that session unlocked a lot of those directors and the strategy of that corporate. What prayer, what scripture, what grounding truth calms the voice of doubt within me? The other day I was with some kindergarten young children and they were reciting Bible verses. And I thought to myself, this is what you should do when things are tough, when you're feeling fearful. I can do anything, everything through Christ who strengthens me. What's your prayer? What's your scripture? What's your grounding truth that when things are tough, when imposter syndrome looks like it's about to choke you, you say it and it releases you? That brings me to the 10th dimension that you need to think about when imposter syndrome is coming your way. Release. Release. Ladies and gentlemen, Pan-African leaders, youthful leaders, what old story about yourself is it time to release? Many of us are carrying old stories that have expired and you have refused to release them because they are so integral to your identity. Set them free. They no longer serve you well. In fact, some of those old stories are lies you've been telling yourself that you've now made them become a truth. What new story am I ready to claim and become? And lastly, what step will I take in the next 24 hours to honor my becoming? To honor my next best selves. My next best self. Because there are versions every day I meet a next best self of myself. So I want to end. This has been a long podcast, but it's been in my heart for many years. And I'm heartbroken when I see people allow imposter syndrome to paralyze them. Remember, imposter syndrome doesn't show up when you're small, it shows up when you're expanding. It's proof that you're growing and stepping into new territory. The goal is not to silence it. Don't silence the voice of doubt. No, just walk with it. Let fear take the passenger seat, but never the steering wheel. You're not an imposter in the rooms you prayed for. Your journey, your wounds, your growth, your messes, the good, the bad, and the ugly, all of it brought you here. When imposter syndrome, mine is called Bozo, whispers, who do you think you are? Answer with the truth. I am becoming who I was created to be, my next best self. Remember that courage is not the absence of self-doubt. It's the decision to rise anyway. You don't need permission to step into greatness, only willingness. Every time you feel like an imposter, pause and honor the younger version, that 20-year-old of me, who once wished for these opportunities that I am currently living.